I'm here now with Bill Harmon, who is the son of Elaine Danfort Harmon.
Yes.
And Bill, thank you so much. And you must be excited that your mother is being inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame.
My whole family is very excited and very honored by this.
And she's had quite a history. So tell us a little bit about her history in the beginning, as she was flying, but also some of her more recent history that your family is very involved in.
Well, during her college years at the University of Maryland, she took CPT, civilian pilot training. She heard about an ad in the Diamondback that for $40 she could get, I believe it was 40 hours of flight time, and she would earn her private pilot's license. And so she did that.
Did she fly right out of College Park at the airport that's still there?
At the historic College Park Airport, which coincidentally, and we can talk about this further if you want, but she has a permanent display in her honor there, which is the whole museum there at the College Park Airport is
fabulous.
Very impressive. And the display includes a lot of the artifacts that she's donated, as well as her Congressional Gold Medal that was awarded to all the WASP is on display there.
Wonderful.
So, but you asked more recently, in years after college, beginning in the mid-'70s, she became very active in the WASP initiative to gain veterans benefits for the WASP. They had been largely overlooked after the war. In fact, they were disbanded and never activated as military, even though they were promised they would be. And they had to pay their own way home, and they had, in the beginning, they had to buy their own uniforms, and 38 of the WASP died, and they had to pass the hat to pay for funerals. So they, not only were they never recognized while they were in pilot training and serving our country, it was a travesty how it all ended when Hap Arnold had to tell them that they were disbanded, and everyone had to go home.
That's why this is so important now, that her story and so many other stories like her are being told, and they're seeing how big the story was.
Right. So picking up in the mid-1970s, President Gerald Ford signed a law that allowed females to go to the military academies, including the United States Air Force. And the news reports at the time were saying that these were the first women that would be allowed to fly military aircraft. And the WASP at the time were in their late 50s and 60s, and they said, wait a minute, we were the first
We were there,
women.
right.
We were there first. So they gained sponsorship from Senator Barry Goldwater, and he championed their cause, and they got a bill passed in Congress that gave them veterans benefits. So a little bit late to go back to college, although not for all the WASP, but for most of them. But my mom, for example, she was able to use veterans benefits when she needed hospitalization later in life. So that was a good thing for her. Beyond that, through the years and right up until just a year or two before she died at age 95 last year, she was an invited guest along with a number of other WASPs to air shows all over the country. And it was quite a thrill for me and my brother and my sisters to escort her to these air shows and see our mom being treated justifiably, but she was just our mom to us, but as this hero. And
were you at the Glen L. Martin Airport and over there as well? I know they had events for like the Rosie the Riveters and other women in the military.
Yeah, we actually, I'm not sure that she ever went to the Glen L. Martin Airport as a guest of honor, but we did stop in there because on the other side of the family, I have a grandfather who's had an Air Force base named after him. He flew the first Glen L. Martin bomber around the continental United States.
So you had flying in your genes in your family.
And it skipped me, but my son earned his private pilot's license a couple of years ago. But anyway, so my mom made a lot of trips around the country. She always went back to the WASP reunions every year in Sweetwater, Texas, where Avenger Field was, where they were trained. And she was a member of the class of 44-9 is what she was classified, which was near the end of the program. And
how old was she when she went in?
She was 25, I believe.
Okay.
She was born the day after Christmas, December 26, 1919, at home at, I believe it's 635 34th Street in the Waverly area of Baltimore. She was a Baltimore girl, and she met the love of her life in college, who was from Tacoma Park, Maryland, and so they moved to the east side of this, well, towards D.C., where they built after the war. They built a home, and that's where I grew up with my 2 sisters and my brother.
Well, you mentioned that to you, your mom was your mom, but
Right.
what were some of the messages that she shared with you as a mom, or that you think she may have learned as part of her career as a WASP, or did she keep those 2 parts of her life very separate?
Well, lessons I learned from her, she was the consummate model citizen. She was extremely proud to be an American, and she was extremely proud to be a lifelong Marylander. She would often say, after coming back from trips around the world, wherever she had been, she would come home and she would remind us how proud she was to be an American and a Marylander. And then she would curiously say, I just don't know why anyone would want to live anywhere other than Maryland.
Oh.
So
It's good she's in the Hall of Fame, too, isn't it?
she loved the state. She loved it tremendously. So, she later in life she traveled a lot. She was the guest of honor at the National Air and Space Museum for the docents' annual meeting, which I escorted her to that. That was quite a thrill. I took her to the Midland, Texas Air Show in, I think it was 2011, and the thrill there is just to see her sitting at an autograph signing table, and you have all these young females in particular coming up in military uniforms, typically Air Force pilots, wanting her autograph because of the trailblazing that she and the other WASP did.
Did she tell you about any of her missions?
Well, as I said, she graduated near the end of the program. They didn't, as I recall, call them missions. They ferried airplanes around the country. And once she graduated, she was stationed, I believe, at Nellis Air Force Base as an air traffic controller and until the WASP program disbanded. But she did fly the AT-6 and the PT-13, the BT-13 trainers.
Are those the precursors to the C-17s?
That I'm not sure. These were trainer planes, and she flew the PT-13 Stearman, and she co-piloted the heavy bomber, the BT-17. So she had quite an
The logbook
interesting
was probably something
logbook.
that was cool, I bet.
Yeah.
Very nice. You mentioned when she was at a couple of the air shows, she was signing autographs, and other female pilots or members of the military came up. Did you ever hear any messages she gave to those young women? Or can you sort of just hear her voice saying something to you?
I hear her voice every day. She's very headstrong. A couple of things. One, her memories of the WASP, while it was a man's world back then, which I think is pretty common knowledge, she would often mention that she never had any trouble with the men. Here she was training them, instrument training and that sort of thing, and she said the men were always very respectful. I don't know if that was true for all the WASP, but that was her opinion.
Oh, and that's good that she had that experience, because I know that there were some others that didn't have that same experience. So.
But you asked me if there was a saying that there was one saying, and it's 2 words.
Yes.
And the 2 words were carpe diem, and that's her advice to us as children, her grandchildren, and the way she lived her life.
Do you remember, we were talking earlier, the quote that we're putting on her panel that had carpe diem at the end? Do you remember the first part? I don't remember.
It said it was a man's world, but we women did something really great. And then it said she was proud to be an American and a Marylander, lifelong Marylander, and then it said carpe diem.
So that will be on her panel.
Yes.
At the Hall of Fame, which will be great.
Yeah.
Is there any other message that either you and your family gained from your mom, or knowing that she was so involved in a special part of history?
Well, quite frankly, she didn't talk a lot about it, as so many veterans from all wars do. She's very humble. In fact, she would be humbled today knowing that she'd say, what's all the fuss about?
Did you want to mention your next, what you're trying hard to do right now for her and other WASPs?
Well, she happens to be right now, at this point in time, spring of 2016 in the national spotlight, internationally as well. She died in April 21st of 2015, and 1 month before, unbeknownst to her and to the rest of us, Arlington National Cemetery closed the doors to WASP being inurned there. And she had attended many funerals there. She lived her life first in Baltimore, but in the home that my dad and her built. My dad passed away when he was 45, and she was a widow for more than half of her life. But she lived in the house in Silver Spring until the day she died. So she was convenient to DC. So she, like back in the 70s, she testified before Congress on behalf of the WASP, but she attended a lot of functions in Washington, including a couple at the White House. And she attended funerals of her fellow WASP at Arlington National Cemetery. And we have in her will, the very first sentence in her will says, "I would like to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery." So it came as quite a shock to us that only a month after they rescinded that capability, my mom was denied access to that. So my niece, Tiffany Miller, started an online petition at change.org. At last count, it has over 170,000 signatures. Representative Martha McSally of Arizona has championed this because she was the first fighter pilot in the country, female fighter pilot. So it struck quite close to her heart. She introduced a bill in the House of Representatives that was passed unanimously last week. And Barbara Mikulski from Maryland, who my mom has met when she got the Congressional Gold Medal, has introduced legislation in the Senate, which is pending a vote, which I think it would be hard to believe that it won't pass.
So she's hopefully going to get her wish soon.
We're hopeful. We're very hopeful.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for talking with us about your mom. She had quite a special history, but also her history is adding to the legacy for women in the military, but also other women and men in our future in Maryland. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for the great honor.
Our next honoree, Elaine Danfort Harmon, was nominated for induction by her son, William A. Harmon. Elaine Harmon spent her entire life in Maryland. She was born in 1919, and even as a young woman, was pioneering new paths. She earned a degree in microbiology from the University of Maryland in 1940. How many women microbiologists, or biologists period, do you think existed in 1940? But while still studying at the university, she took flying lessons at the College Park Airport, having to get her father to sign the permission form for her, since her mother would not consider it, since it was unladylike. She joined the war effort in World War II as a member of the Women Air Force Service Pilots, the WASP. After the war, she continued working with the WASP organization, advocating for recognition and GI benefits for women who served in the nation's military during the war. She was awarded a congressional medal and has met with 2 sitting presidents, George W. Bush and President Barack Obama. She continued her advocacy on behalf of women veterans well into her 90s. Elaine Danfort Harmon died last year at the age of 95. For her service to our country and to our nation's women's veterans, she is tonight inducted into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame.
I worked on this speech really hard this afternoon, and I was successful in trimming it down from 60 minutes to 45 minutes. First, I would like to thank the Maryland Women's Commission for bestowing this honor on my mother. My mom used to like to say that while it was a man's world during World War II, we women of the WASP did something really special. There's so much I would like to say,
but I think this brief poem, written in 1992 by her little sister, Jean Danfort Thompson, best captures what my mom and all the WASP did, not only for our country during the war, but also for all women who followed in their footsteps. The title of the poem is Wing Prints. When I first decided to fly, I didn't think of the sky as a man's world. I thought of it as my sister's world. She was the only pilot I had ever known. Her wing prints in the sky gave me the courage to try. Because she had done it, I knew I could. When my parents and boyfriend discouraged me, I thought of her. When I had no money for lessons, I thought of what she would do. And I found a job after school. When I became frightened by small aircraft on a windy day, I knew she had gotten beyond that fear. When I soloed, I crossed my fingers and thought of her first time to fly. When I thought I would never be able to make a good landing, I knew she had. My sister's wing prints in the sky gave me the courage to fly. So I propose a toast to all my sisters who went first, to all the WASP who pioneered the sky, leaving trails through the night, wind, and weather. To all who proved the sky belonged to them, thank you for your wing prints. My mother lost her husband, my father, at the age of 45, but later in life she was still able to travel with friends to many places in the world. When she returned from these trips, she would always tell us how lucky she felt to be an American and how proud she was to be a Marylander. She would often state incredulously, why would anyone want to live anywhere but Maryland? She was a World War II veteran and heroine, a lifelong Marylander and patriot, and a model citizen. She was a true role model, not just for women, but for men as well. Most of all, she was just a wonderful mother. In closing, I would like to simply leave you with her favorite two words that exemplifies how she lived her life. Carpe diem. Thank you.
Welcome back. I'm here with Celia Lowe, and she nominated Mary Goodwillie from the Junior League of Baltimore. Welcome.
Thank you.
This has been an exciting evening tonight, hasn't it?
Yes, beautiful evening. Thank you so much for having us.
So tell me a little bit more about why you nominated Mary.
Well, one of the main reasons is because the organization she started almost 104 years ago is still going strong in the city of Baltimore and throughout different counties in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was very important that her legacy be preserved as we continue to go on and on. We celebrated our centennial a few years ago. We definitely wanted to make sure people knew what her work and what her legacy was for
What
the
do
city.
you think is exactly her specific aspect of her legacy?
I think empowering women to give back to the community. We have women who are stay-at-home moms, attorneys such as myself, professors, nurses, teachers, doctors, but the fact that we're still doing things professionally and willing to give back to the community to make it a better place for all of us and for generations to come.
In the early days, what were some of the activities that she and the rest of the group were involved in?
Oh, the women's suffrage movement was a really big one at the time. And after that, there were different opportunities for voting rights for women that continued, speaking out about the importance of professionalism for women. Education was a huge issue. John Hopkins has a room that's named after her, and she was a lover of literature and all kinds of arts. And it's been a tradition of ours to continue. The Baltimore Junior League had POPs, which was a nice performance fundraiser that they did for years and years. The Flower Mart, which is a very popular Baltimore institution, was started by the Junior League.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The Maryland School for the Blind, domestic violence legislation that's been passed. So her legacy of standing up for women and for children in the community continues to this day.
That's amazing. You mentioned that in your role as of the current president, you also were inspired by another organization that you belong to.
Yes, I'm actually a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and one of our founders was nominated a few years ago. And I thought that was so impressive that you all would honor someone who had passed on But the fact that their legacy still lives on, and that sorority, we are celebrating 108 years this year, and it's a wonderful marriage between the two organizations that I'm a member of. Actually, last year when I was elected, I became the first African American woman, or any woman of color, to be the president of the Junior League of Baltimore in its 103-year history. So
It's time.
Yes, it was time. It was time. It was time. And it was. It's been a wonderful experience. I've learned a lot after what happened in our city. I've actually been traveling throughout the country, talking about how organizations such as the Junior League are still relevant, and how we keep our seat at the table to help our communities and continue to be relevant and important to the work that's done in the world.
Since you know both a lot of Mary's history and you also know contemporary Baltimore, what do you think Mary's message to you or to others would be to stabilize Baltimore, to make it a city that everyone feels welcome and included, and what would be some of her?
I think her life was the perfect example of the saying, you want to leave the world better than you found it. And I think that would probably be a great message for our city and for our state, that if we all do our part to leave this city and the state better than we found it yesterday, that would do so much for just making Baltimore the premier city and location that it is. People still love it. People still come in droves, and we've had a lot of opportunities to collaborate. Maryland Nonprofits has been at the forefront of bringing lots of different groups to the table, and that's been very, very helpful. I'm very proud that my sorority, in spite of the uprising, we're having our regional conference in Baltimore City next year, and that will be about 3,500 women coming here to do community service, spend money, and help contribute to our society. So I think it's that leaving it better than you found it would be her biggest message.
I think Mary would be very proud of you and your work.
Thank you.
And when you are doing your work, either here in Maryland or when I know you were traveling for the league, what voices do you hear, what messages do you hear come from Mary and her legacy?
To keep going. That, you know, we've done some great work in the state. The organization internationally has done some great work behind human trafficking, helping children with healthy eating habits, women's rights, but there's still so much more to be done.
There's a lot we have to do, yes. Clearly, you're a representative of the league, but you have also embraced the mission of the league. So when you're working with young people, particularly young women, what are you personally saying as well to remember Mary's legacy, but also your legacy as the first woman president, as African American for the league, and your other roles that you have? I'm sure in your job as a lawyer, as a federal employee, so you have many experiences that you're bringing to the community.
My message tends to always around being positive and thinking very highly of yourself. Sometimes you have to clap for yourself. As Sometimes you have to cheer yourself along and hope that people join in and bring your best to the table. You know, it's hard sometimes to be in particular fields or particular circumstances, but if you're encouraged yourself and you stay positive, I've at least seen in my experience that the more positive I am, the better things keep coming towards my way and great opportunities such as this. And I just tend to tell people that, you know, positive thinking is really a cure-all for lots of ills.
Keeps you going, doesn't it?
It does.
Right.
Get you up every morning. Me
Right.
for 4:30 a.m. for that commute.
Well, one of the things that's also so good about the induction ceremony is that you, most of the women that you meet here, it's not about them, it's about the work, whatever their work was.
Yes.
And it was always very much about paying it forward. And it's really funny too, while we were doing the other interviews too, they said, I don't know why I was picked. And you could say you were picked because you did something pretty amazing. So that's been a fun part too.
Yes.
And so when you are thinking of other activities of the league, or for you as the current president, what are some of your next steps that will be happening maybe this summer, or that Mary would be thinking about if she were here with us?
One of the things we did last year, we opened up we have a store, the Wise Penny, celebrating 45 years this year, and we opened it up as a summer youth works program. So we had our teenagers from the city, many, you know, it was a really rough early spring, but we gave them opportunities and chances to come in and work and get some employment, be paid through the city. We have a Wise Penny Women's Internship Program where twice a year we pull women for the community, typically who don't have a lot of employment or history, and we give them one-on-one mentors. And we let them work in the store, we provide a stipend, and we teach some actual job readiness skills. And I served as a mentor a couple years ago, and my mentee went from being a part-time sales clerk to the Goodwill hiring as assistant manager in the 16-week program. So anything that's hands-on and impactful, we're trying to focus on that because we know the city needs it. And we know economics and education, they go hand in hand in terms of improving society. So I think those would be the two big things that we're doing this summer and looking to start the Kids in the Kitchen program in the fall again, so which would be really great.
They're engaged during the summer.
Yes.
They're busy.
Yes.
And so they're, those activities will keep them focused and
Definitely.
away from other stuff.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right. Well, I wanted to thank you again so much. It was great talking to you about Mary Goodwillie.
Thank
But
you.
thank you very much, and congratulations for all the good work of the league.
Thank you so very much. We truly appreciate it. Looking
Great.
forward to the exhibit.
Great, thank you. Come see us.
I will.
Our next honoree is Mary C. Goodwillie. Ms. Goodwillie was the founder of the Junior League of Baltimore, a community service organization at a time when volunteerism was a new idea. She was nominated for induction into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame by Celia Lowe, current president of the Junior League of Baltimore. Home service. Active on the board of the Women's Auxiliary at Johns Hopkins Hospital, she recognized the Medical Social Service Department. In 1910, she brought 10 friends together to see what they could do to address the plight of Baltimore City's oppressed. As the group grew in size and scope, they established themselves as the Junior League of Baltimore, only the 5th junior league in the world with the express purpose of promoting volunteerism and improving conditions through trained volunteers. All of this before women even had the right to vote. They boycotted stores that didn't support labor unions' fair wages, even organizing what was most likely the first public debate by women in Baltimore on the question of women's suffrage. Mary Goodwillie died on June 28, 1949, but her legacy lives on. For this, we induct her this evening into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. Mrs. Lowe, would you like to come up as the person who nominated and is standing for her this evening?
Good evening. I would truly like to thank the Maryland Women's Commission for this honor. A few short years ago, I'm a member of another organization, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and one of our founders was honored in this way. And I thought to myself, I'm in two wonderful women's organizations, over 100 years old each, and their founders should be recognized and held in the historic records of the state of Maryland. So when I became president last year, it was one of the first things, and the administrative staff may remember me calling and emailing to see when the application was coming out quite a few times. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all again for this honor. Her work and her legacy lives on. We celebrate 104 years in a few weeks in Baltimore. And we're one of only two. There's a junior league in Annapolis and one in Baltimore. So we've done a lot of work over the years. And if I could just take point of personal privilege, if all the members of the junior league that are here tonight could please stand up. We have some other past presidents, our incoming president, and our distinguished members. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to honor our founder and whose legacy does live on. And we look forward to these wonderful young ladies in the front. Congratulations. Applications start 21. So, thank you.
Thank you.